if you are a student or a professional who is currently working in the industry and struggling with time management due to a lot of tasks and a lot of duties, then this podcast is for you. Today I'm here with Giacomo, who is a friend of mine and also a colleague from the same university, KU Leuven. And he, in my opinion, is doing great in time management and multitasking. So we'll try to learn a bit about his experience, and we'll also be sharing some practical tips and some practical guidelines which you could implement in your life, and hopefully it will help you boost your productivity and also increase the chances of your success. So let's get into it. Hi, Giacomo. Thanks for the podcast.
Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure. So before we jump into the content, could you introduce yourself a little bit to the audience? What is your background in terms of, maybe just from the start, where do you come from? What's your bachelor in it, and what's your bachelor in, and then your master's, and currently what you're doing in your PhD?
Sure. So, hello everyone. I'm Giacomo Bastianel. I come from Italy, and I've been happily living in Belgium for 5 years now. So, as Hafeez introduced me, I'm doing a PhD, as in KU Leuven University in Belgium. I did my bachelor in Italy, University of Padova, in energy engineering, and then I moved here for my master. And essentially, it was just a prosecution of the bachelor. So here we studied a bit of electrical engineering, a bit of mechanical engineering, a bit of electricity market, and then I decided to continue in the research world. So I guess that's it.
Yeah, and what's your research in?
My research is about grid topology optimization, so it's a bit applied mathematics to the power system world. It's a bit boring topic, but it's actually pretty interesting, and probably it's needed for the future.
Interesting and important because energy transition is needed.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's also talk a little bit about why we chose this topic today.
Yep.
So at least in my opinion, time management is one basic thing that leads a person to either success or not a great success. So what do you think about time management?
Sure, I guess we chose this topic because we were in the same student branch. So, we are doing a PhD, but we also like to organize events for students, both PhD and master students. And at some point in time, I guess we were talking and we realized that we wanted to do something for our colleagues in terms of well-being. And then asking around, actually, one of the main problems was time management, right?
Yeah.
So then, we wanted to dig deeper into this.
Exactly.
And, as you mentioned, the time management is probably, the most important thing while you're doing a PhD, because you have many projects, you have many inputs from your supervisor, but also if you're working, you probably have many inputs from your employer, and you want a bit to deal with this in the most efficient way.
And actually, as Giacomo mentioned, we organized these well-being sessions for PhD students, and I think it was the biggest problem that came out, the time management.
Yeah,
thing,
sure.
Right?
It's a recurrent. We had many, probably we will touch upon them later in the podcast, but it was time management. It's always either the first or the second most chosen problem by young people.
So hopefully today, after today's podcast, it will also help you if you are a student, if you are a professional. It will bring a bit more routine to your life, hopefully. So, Giacomo, could you mention if there was a moment in your life when you felt like it was very important, and how busy is your current work day is, and how does it look like, let's say?
Yeah. So definitely, being a student, we didn't realize it, but we had some free time or a lot of free time. While when I started working, I realized that, you get some work that you have to do. So then I realized that you have to try to manage your time in the most efficient way, right? And Yeah, I would say that it's pretty busy. It has been busy for years and probably it will be busy. So it's always a matter of, I guess, choosing your priorities on how you wanted to invest your time. Because, we have so many inputs, but, you needed to a bit pick your battles on what you wanted to invest the time on. And I guess that's probably one of the most important things.
Exactly. And how does a work day look for you between 9 to 5? Just a high level. Do you normally multitask a lot, or do you...
Try not to. Depends a bit on, if you have simulations that are running for hours or for tens of minutes, then you need to do a bit of multitasking. Otherwise, I try to block some, just the time periods in my agenda, right? Like 1 hour and a half, 2 hours, or 1 hour even, in which you can focus. You can block it in your calendar and you can actually work on that.
Right. So let's then get into a little bit more detail about time management. So could we also shed some light on some earlier mistakes, or let's say what was the biggest bottleneck when you started your PhD, or let's say you started working? What do you think is one main thing which students or professionals, they're not understanding that actually this is one big problem that I'm doing? Is it like switching between tasks very often, or is it like not planning the day ahead in advance, or is it just like scrolling through social media all the time? What do you think is...
I mean, it's a bit of a combination of everything, but I guess the main thing we should realize is that we should invest the time in organizing yourself. And for everything, right? For your personal life, your working life, also for if you're a project manager, actually investing some time in the organization and daring to do that might actually save a lot of time in the long run. So I think that one would be, if I had to give an advice. And actually also consuming content on how to organize yourself is something that helped me, because when I was a student, I cared about the study. And also if you have too much time and just using all that time for study, actually your efficiency goes a bit low, and you might as well invest time in other activities like sport, right? Or looking for advice.
That's a very good point here. So what Giacomo just mentioned, like it's not just the hard work that matters, it's also the direction in which we put the hard work. So sometimes it's better to plan before doing your hard work rather than just blindly doing it. So as he mentioned, it's better to invest some time to organize your tasks, organize your day, and then you move on and do the heavy lifting, right? So I think that's a great point. And then let's talk about prioritization. What should the students prioritize, or what should the professionals prioritize? What task do you think is the best to prioritize in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening, so that it is a productive day for a student? Or let's go a little step back. What is a productive day? Let's say, what's the definition of productivity for you?
Okay, I should have mentioned it before, but what I normally convey as an advice is just because I like to listen to a lot of podcasts, Uberman Lab in particular, but also Lex Friedman podcast. So I tried to learn about this and then put it in these well-being sessions that we mentioned before.
Nice.
So going back to the question, I guess a productive day is a day in which you wanted to achieve, what you, let's say, you dream about achieving while you're going to work, right? So probably in this sense, many people actually suggested to have a task list. So you just have some bullet points, and it's extremely satisfying actually when you erase one of these bullet points because you have a task. So then probably if you have all these bullet points that are just cancelled by the end of the day, then I would call it a productive day, right?
That's a good point.
While like the question about in the morning, afternoon, evening, or lunch, what to prioritize, I guess it's a bit dependent on you, actually. So that's also one of the best advice that I read on the literature when preparing the well-being session is to dare to know yourself, right? So you know if you like something, you know if you are more efficient in reading like in the morning because you're like early bird, or like in the evening because you're night owl. So then you should definitely, not probably organize your meetings at 10 p.m. But you know, if you know that you are most attentive in reading from 5 to 10 p.m., then you should focus your reading on in that time, right? And it probably takes a lot of effort, but I would say that in some months, then if you do it consistently, probably you will know yourself.
I think this is a nice point you raised here, right? Like knowing yourself.
Yep.
I think like if you're an early bird or if you're a late night owl kind of a person, then it's okay if you can do productive work during those times. So there is no one solution fit for all basically here. But I would also like to add on to the tasks list point, which Giacomo mentioned. So there is an app which is called Notability. So Notability is also great in scheduling and planning. So if you just have a simple template of Notability and you have like this task list in which you have progress, completed, and to do, then you already have a sort of an arrangement, and then you can move the cards, and it's very nice. And I would also suggest actually, and I would also like to have your opinion here, that if you have a bigger project or if you have a big task, try to break it into small chunks and then include that into your task list, and then you try to complete those task lists. Don't try to do the whole thing in one go, because that will basically increase the chances of procrastination. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, for sure. You need to create smaller tasks. I mean, there are courses on project management and all these things, right? And yeah, as you mentioned, the app works perfectly. I personally use Notion. That is as well extremely good. It will take some time though, when you create this tasks list, to also know what you can achieve, right?
Yeah.
Because I also read literature, but also online, right? That is, people might want to be overachievers, so you put too many bullet points in your task list, and then you're stressed because you cannot achieve them, right?
True.
So there should be a good trade-off between what you can achieve and what you put in this task list.
Okay.
That's also an error that I made at the beginning of the PhD. So I was tracking like every day. So I had like a Notion page every day.
Oh.
But then they were all the same, right? So probably you should do it like a bit for like a weekly or a monthly, or just having based on the project. You know, you just have a page and you say, okay, this has to be done by when, and all these things.
Yeah, that's also a good point. Don't be too over optimistic in the task.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, then you might be stressing too much, and also you don't want to do that.
So realistic planning is the second thing I think which we can take away from this conversation. Okay, great. And then we move a little bit towards time blocking and scheduling ahead. So normally what happens is, normally at least at the beginning, I also experience this. If I don't think about what I want to do the next day before going to bed, I didn't feel myself to be very productive. And if you think on the go, then normally it consumes some time.
Yeah.
So do you suggest people before going to bed, they should have some sort of a scheduling of the tasks which they need to do next day, or do you think it's just not really important?
I mean, if it works for you, for having clarity of mind, definitely they should do it. You might as well do it before leaving work, right?
Okay.
Before leaving the office, right? So then the next day when you're there, you open this task list and you check if you agree or not with that, depending on how you slept.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, it's really important. I know some people, they do it also on a weekly basis, not day by day. Yeah, whatever works best for you. I guess it's the best. And also, this is a bit unrelated, but also to evaluate your emotions maybe throughout the week. Many papers suggested doing journaling, so like writing, or even, I mean, it can be like writing what happened during your day, but also some kind of gratitude journals, like emotions you felt during the day, or things for which you're happy.
Nice.
Throughout your week, something like that. Yeah.
Do you do journaling, if I may ask?
Actually, but not on the daily or weekly basis. I guess monthly, more or less. Yeah, between weekly and monthly, I guess. Yeah, it helps to write down stuff, right? Because if it's on your mind, then it might change, or you might not remember it well. So if you write it down, it actually helps quite a lot.
Nice. So journaling is the third takeaway here, that if it helps clearing your mind a bit, then probably journaling is quite nice. But here I would also like to raise an important question about procrastination. So normally, if you have a big task, if you're, let's say, if in our research we have to implement a code, let's say, or a model or something, normally it can be really daunting to start off. So what is like this starting mentality that the student should have, or let's say a professional should have before starting? I will share my opinion also, but first I'd like to hear yours.
Being there, done that. I guess it's really difficult. It can feel overwhelming when you're there. You're at the start of a project and you have way too many tasks. So on one side, breaking tasks down helps. And try also to estimate how much time it will take to do that. Of course, it will take more than you expect, but also accommodate for that.
Yeah.
So that's on one side. And I think, what else was I thinking? Also, don't be afraid of digging deep sometimes, right? So you should probably, I mean, if you're doing a PhD, then you're exploring a new field, so it will take some time. But also, maybe I would suggest that if you can, to have two parallel activities. So when one doesn't work that well, then you can jump on the other. And a bit, for us, it's helpful, like writing a paper or coding, right? And that's, they can be complementary, right? Maybe you can be writing for like an entire morning, but then you're tired, or you cannot write more than that. So then you go back to coding. So trying to advance on one or the other, I guess it helps.
What's the right balance here? Like if we talk about writing and coding, normally, do you suggest like it's better to have both tasks done half and half, like 50%, 50%? Or sometimes you're just like, at least these days I'm just too much occupied by coding, so I just don't have time for writing anymore. But do you see like this has to be done in parallel?
It depends on your deadlines, I guess. And also on the project deadlines, right? Because we didn't mention it, but of course putting deadlines help. And also reward you after you achieve the deadline. That's also important for your well-being. But then, depending, if you know that by the end of the month you need to have a document, then probably you should prioritize writing towards the end. But then, I would say try to keep yourself busy with either writing and coding, or coding and something else, right? Like organizing events, as we did.
And he's still doing it quite actively.
Then you leave in the morning and you go to the supermarket to get the groceries for 1 hour, and then it actually helps, maybe just to free your mind a bit.
To clear your mind, But these are some nice set of advices here, right? Like suggestions, breaking the tasks. Then don't be afraid to go deep. Like try to do deep work as well. That's very important for your personal satisfaction. Also, I feel at times I think like intellectual advancement or progress is also possible when you do some deep work. And then Giacomo mentioned about having 2 or 3 parallel tasks so that you can switch between them, but just try not to switch very fast so that you get distracted too much. So just try to allocate one time for one thing, and if it is not working, then you switch to the other one. Here I would like to add another thing here. which I think is very important and it saves you a lot of time. It's asking for help. So if you have colleagues, like if Giacomo is working in a domain that I have a question from, or if he's working in a domain that he has a question from, I think what really helps is you ask for help and you actually reach out to the person and you just talk. What's gonna happen? There's nothing normally to lose. You normally just gain, and the other person also learns a little bit about your project. So asking for help, I think, is very important. Saves you a lot of time, and sometimes you just get to know some hacks, and then you can save a lot of time.
That's super important, actually. Talking to people, because it saves you so much time. I mean, it's really unlikely that you will have a problem that other people didn't solve before you, right? True. So you should definitely talk to people, and probably also I would suggest, this one is a bit preaching from my own soul, I guess, but when you ask for help, report what you asked, like the problem you had and how you solved it, because then if you write it a solution, then you can just give it to other people or like to new PhD colleagues, right?
Right.
So then you have, by the end of your PhD, you will have a list with all the problems, and then you give it to the next generation.
Wow.
And then you save so much time, right? Because also talking to people takes time. You do it once, but then once it's done once, then you can transmit it to other people. So also writing down stuff helps a lot, I figured.
That's very important now that I think about it. When I was learning about the HPC cluster, how to run codes on the supercomputer, it was a very difficult task, and then I got help from a colleague of ours. And I think if that is written down in a document, that would be so much.
That would be so good, right?
I think I should do that. So I should be the first one to apply his suggestion here. But I completely agree. You save so many hours, right, of so many people by just having some sort of a to-do thing.
I mean, and then other people can contribute to your notes, right? So then you have a manual at the end of the day.
And just a bonus advice here. So if you're a PhD student, you have to normally go through a lot of literature. You're reading a lot. You have to keep up with the new publications in your domain. I would suggest once you read a paper, you make a notes out of it. It can be anything. It can be on your written file. It could be on your iPad. It could be on your computer. For making notes on computer, there's a very nice app called Obsidian, Obsidian, in which you can make notes and then you can connect different papers also.
Oh, that's nice.
And then once you are in that note, you can see which other papers were referring or related to this one, and then it's a very nice graph. So do make notes of the paper you're reading. This is going to help you a lot, because after 4 years...
Take a note, please.
So after 4 years, normally when you're writing your thesis, you don't know a lot about which paper was the most important, so try to make those notes. Okay, awesome. Then let's move on to the next thing, which is tools. So we already talked about Notion, we already talked about Notability, we already talked about Obsidian.
Yep.
We talked about, I believe these are the 3 apps we talked about, but which other apps are your favorite for this time management thing, and that you would like to suggest to the audience?
I guess you also mentioned before social media scrolling. Well, I guess now a term that people use is doom scrolling. So you're just scrolling just for the sake of scrolling,
right,
and losing time on that. So in that sense, there's an app called the OneSec. It's ONESEC, OneSec. That essentially you can decide which apps, you can connect it to which apps, and when you try to open an app, it makes you inhale and exhale, so you have to wait some seconds, and then you have to confirm whether you wanted to open the app or not.
Okay.
And that saved me so much time, because at some point in time I was just going from Instagram to then TikTok, and then again LinkedIn, YouTube, and the emails, and then you are just, by the time you finish scrolling on one app, you have new content on the other, right? I guess it sounds familiar. And with OneSec, then you really needed to think when you wanted to open the app, and it just it saves you so much time. So I guess that one would be the best.
That's great.
Even though there's especially from the Huberman Lab podcast, this is an advice that he gives to everyone, is just not to have your phone on the same room as you.
Okay.
I cannot do that, sadly.
Because
because I like my phone, right? But that one would probably be the best advice also for sleeping. Having an alarm, buying a proper alarm, and leave the phone out of your room.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I would say those ones are the best ones.
So these two things which Giacomo mentioned, doom scrolling, that is something which we need to avoid. So 1 sec app is good for that, and then try to keep the phone away as much as possible. I know this sounds a bit difficult, but it is possible if you can do that.
I tried the two, and it works perfectly.
Awesome. So you keep the phone in another room?
Yeah. When I'm at home, I try to, and it works so well.
Great. And then I think I would also like to add here an app which is called the Forest app. It implements Pomodoro Technique. So Pomodoro Technique is a time management technique in which you basically divide your time into blocks of 30 minutes or 40 or 50 minutes, depending upon how long you want to keep your Pomodoro working time. So if I'm doing a Pomodoro, this means of 40 minutes, then I would keep this app open. I would just do 40 minutes of work, and then there is 8 minutes or 10 minutes of break. And then during that time, you can get up, do some stretching exercises, get some water, do some outdoor sightseeing, whatever. But you do something which is not just scrolling into social media, but actually gets you moving, makes you feel a bit better. So after 8 or 10 minutes of break, you'd start the second Pomodoro, which is what the Forest app does. And then your tree starts to grow in that app, and it looks very nice. Your forest is getting green because you're working. So there's an app like that also, called the Turkey, I guess it's called. Turkey. Yeah, called the Turkey. Yeah, okay. It just blocks your phone, I think. Nice. And there are also some YouTube videos, just doing this, because also the Pomodoro depends a bit. You might have a 15 minutes, 25 minutes, 40 minutes. So you need to figure out what's the best for you. But I guess it's also scientifically proven that blocking up to 90 minutes block of time to do work, focused work, it actually helps. Your concentration. So so 90 minutes straight.
Also, it depends, right? If you're coding, you might pass hours on but writing probably 30 minutes, and then you take a break. That would be. So
90 minutes, up to 90 minutes is the time you can have a very, very focused work, but don't try to overstretch, because then you're going down again in productivity.
We should realize that taking breaks, it's also super important. And also moving around, take some steps. We are pretty lucky here that we have a forest there.
As you can see a little bit behind
us. That's amazing. We should do it more often, actually, just to go for a walk 10 minutes. And now it's sunny, it might be raining, but actually, breathing some fresh air, that would help. That helps a lot.
And then there is another app, not an app, it's very common, Google Calendar. If you're a Google user, just make your agenda on Google Calendar. It's the simplest and the easiest. So these are some suggestions, I guess. And then we move on to, I think this is the second last topic of today, mental well-being, which is a very important topic. As a PhD student, I realized that this is one biggest issue that the PhD students go through. They don't talk a lot about mental well-being, but this is something which we discussed, me and Giacomo, and we started taking this initiative of well-being sessions through the IEEE Society here in Leuven. And I think so far it's doing great, right? We had a couple of sessions already. Yeah, we are going to have the fourth one in a month or something. Awesome. So the idea is that there is a well-being session every 6 months, and then the PhD students or researchers, whoever is working, they just post questions about their frustrations, or let's say their questions about well-being, how to be productive, whatever. And then we call in experts. Actually now, I'm no longer an active part of IEEE, so they call experts, and then they answer the questions and then they also address them and then they help the students. So let's talk about mental well-being a little bit. How do you see this as an important thing for the time management part also?
Yeah, for sure.
And then for the students and the professionals, let's say.
I mean, that's a bit, the base of everything, right? You cannot really focus if you don't have a clarity of mind, if you're not feeling good with yourself.
Yeah.
I would say mental well-being also comes from physical well-being and vice versa. Okay. So you should prioritize these two things. I guess, there are countless studies on this. But related to productivity, I would mention, if you say that if you have a poor mental well-being, it's probably there's a direct bad correlation with your productivity. So you need to feel good with yourself. And also, as I was mentioning before, the fact that you might create some tasks lists that then you cannot achieve. So then that would be a decrement for your mental well-being. So you really need somehow to start knowing yourself or to get to know yourself. I know it sounds a bit philosophical here, but that's the best advice I can give for the long term, right? So to be productive, but also to be happy in life, necessarily. And that they are all these things are related, right? So you should prioritize that. You should read a bit. Also, probably we will add the slides that we prepared down below.
I will share the link.
Yeah. So just getting to know these things and best practices actually might help you in the long term. Especially, they might not be necessarily related to your profession or something, but you might get some nice inputs on that. And to me, it's also interesting, right? That's why I try to do this and organize these sessions.
Yeah. Completely agreed. I think, and also there is a philosophy, or let's say there is a term which is known as having small wins. So if you start making an efficient and pragmatic task list and you start getting things done, let's say in the first 4 hours or 3 hours of your day, normally these small wins help you get a bit more better in your well-being, and mentally and psychologically you feel that okay, you can get things done. And that's also important and connected directly with the mental well-being, that once you are starting to be more efficient, your well-being gets better psychologically. And then what Giacomo mentioned, physical well-being is directly correlated to mental well-being. So do try to do some exercise, do some workouts. 3 workouts a week or 4 workouts a week is a good combination. That's what I learned from.
There's a lot of literature on the topic.
Exactly, yeah. Do some workout, play some sports, and then you're already reaching that point. So, yeah.
And I would say to also talk to people, right? It's also probably it's a bit of a stigma in some countries to talk about your emotions, but probably you should share them. It's not good to keep them inside, and also they might increase your stress levels, right? So stress might be good, so it's proven to be good, but too much stress for a long periods of time actually is really detrimental, and you might fall in burnouts on all these things. Yeah. So talk to people, seek for help if you need help. There's no stigma about that. I think it's a pretty important thing that we also always mention during our well-being sessions.
Mind is also a body part, right? The way if we get flu or cold, we talk about it, we should also talk about the mind. And do some catharsis, as Giacomo says, just explain your emotions, but to someone who is trustworthy, or let's say to someone who you can at least count on.
Who's willing to help.
Who's willing to help, not exploit. So be also careful there.
But you will find quite some nice protocols in the slides that we will share.
Yeah, exactly. Giacomo did a lot of research and literature review to make these slides, so do check them out. It's very nice. So let's talk about final topic of today, which is procrastination and motivation slumps, basically.
Yep.
So what do you think triggers procrastination? Let's say if I'm doing a work, what could be a trigger for procrastination?
Yeah, I would say probably the first is feeling overwhelmed, as we were mentioning before.
Mm-hmm.
You might have some tasks that they seem so big, and actually they are big. Doing a project like a PhD project, or it's something big, so people might feel overwhelmed,
Mm-hmm.
or they might feel insecure. So what your way to cope with this is just to procrastinate or say I will do it later, right?
Do it later, yeah.
And that might create problems on the long term, because maybe if you have a deadline in some months, you will say, okay, I have still time, but then you will rush everything towards the end. So in that sense, as we mentioned, I guess breaking the tasks in small tasks helps. And then I guess a second reason for procrastination might be also lack of motivation. And this might be a bit, every person is different on this, right? But there's again scientific evidence that if you do something every day,
Mm-hmm.
and for like 3 weeks, something like this, you would create some consistency. And once you have created this consistency, actually you might keep on. It's easier to keep doing the same thing.
Right.
And this definitely helps with avoiding procrastination, right? Because you know what's the deal, you know what to do. So actually you might actually take new tasks because you are organized and you can place them in your calendar.
True. That's a very good point. Solid advice here. So breaking the tasks again, and then not overwhelming yourself too much with too many tasks. Keep it practical, keep it pragmatic. I think one thing I would also add to Giacomo's words is that it also helps to not be afraid of starting something and thinking about, okay, I don't know this stuff. Having this imposter syndrome is very common in our domain as well. So once we are getting into something, a new algorithm you're trying to understand, or you're trying to code something, it's perfectly fine to have this imposter syndrome, but use it to your benefit. Try to learn more, try to read more, and don't be afraid. If you're procrastinating a lot, a good technique is that you just sit and then you just keep sitting. You just keep doing that thing until you get something out of it. This shows that you can get something done out of it. That's at least what I've experienced. Like sometimes it's not like you get afraid from something, you just get up, go away. No, you just sit through it, you do something about it, you do at least 0.1% of that thing. Sometimes that also helps, gives you some confidence. Okay, this is doable, and then you move on. So that's something which I've noticed.
I think also mentally it helps to think about these things. These challenges are something that we learn, right? So you're learning something actually. So it might be extremely annoying to do this, but at least you're learning something and you can practice it again, maybe in another context in some time.
Great.
And don't forget to reward yourself as well, right? So for us, it's like submitting a paper or getting a paper accepted.
Yeah.
You have a deadline, you know that the day later, maybe you can take a holiday day, or you can go for a nice dinner or a nice walk outside, right? So it's also nice to work hard, but then reward yourself, because that's also, as I mentioned before, the stress goes up and down. And in order to make it go down, you need to do something nice, I guess.
Amazing, yeah. And I can perfectly connect this with reinforcement learning, which I do on a daily basis in my research. So in reinforcement learning, the agent takes some action, and if it gets a penalty, it doesn't do that again. But if it gets a reward, it would do that action again.
Okay.
So if you do the action and you get a positive reward, you will keep on doing more good work. So try to give yourself reward for the productive things, as Giacomo mentioned, and then try to penalize yourself for the bad stuff you
don't be too harsh on yourself, but it's also good to be hard on yourself at times.
So, okay, great. Then the final piece of advice, Giacomo, for the students, for the professionals, for the just regular user, how to be mindful of the time, how to be good in time management, how to be productive, let's say. What is your one takeaway advice for the audience?
Okay. Yes, I guess as I was mentioning at the beginning, dare to know yourself. So listen to yourself, listen to your body, listen to what you like to do. That's important, to know yourself, because then only you can know yourself that good, right? So know the best for yourself. And I would say try to think about the things as something that you're learning that you can use in the future, right? And try to maximize this and to avoid doing things only for a short time reward, but think about the medium and longer term, I would say.
Right.
So I would say this would be my advice to young professionals, but also old professionals, right? You can always change and look for solutions.
We are assuming the old professionals are already the pros, so they
nobody's a pro, I guess, right?
But nice. So know yourself and then try to look at the longer return. That's what Giacomo says and suggests. I think from my side, the one suggestion about avoiding procrastination or being better in time management is, I guess it's one thing which I learned from someone on YouTube. I don't remember the name. He does a great work in productivity and this time management stuff. So I think what he mentioned was starting is the best condition, is perfectly fine condition to begin something, which means that sometimes you might not have a 100% motivation to do some task. You might not feel like doing something. You don't want to start a project, or you don't want to code, or you don't want to write. But sometimes it's just starting and giving yourself this 5 minutes that, okay, I will just spend 5 minutes on writing this or coding this or doing this. And if it works out, I'm going to keep doing it. And if it doesn't work out, I'm going to do something else. Normally, if you trick yourself into starting, normally you will retain an interest and you will do that thing. So I think that's my advice.
I would say in order to do things, you actually needed to do them, right? At some point. So you needed to start from somewhere.
That felt a bit hard. No, but that's true, but thanks, Giacomo, for the time. I think it was super interesting discussion. I hope you guys also learned something, and I would also request Giacomo, if there are questions, people might drop some comments. He will be there also to answer. I will also be there. So we will also share the slides which Giacomo recently made for the well-being of the mental well-being of the researchers. So we will share that with you as well. And we wish you all the productivity and success in your life.
See
you. Bye.
Nice.
Okay, awesome.
43 minutes.
I think